My name is Jalen Lewis, and this is the
Gilchrist Experience.
and this is the Gilchrist Experience. Today we'll be watching a tape about the marvelous things that we do in the Boys and Girls Club and of Harlem. This is my great grandfather, and his name is Papa.
Well, you know, we have to practice that. Last week she was a little better than that. But, you know, let's go to the roll-in. Thank you for coming. We'll be right back to you.
As I was sitting there listening to speeches, I looked around this wonderful room, and I know we'll have a chance to see some of the other rooms in this state-of-the-art Boys and Girls Club, number 2000 Boys and Girls Club. I thought to myself, I see all that steel, I see all that cinder block work and electrical work and air conditioning work, and it takes about this much stuff to make a jail. It's about what it would take. And that's what we've been doing too much of in recent years. We've been using this kind of material and treasure to build jails, to put our children in eventually. No other civilized nation in the world has as many people in jail as we have in jail. So we need more mentors. We need more places like this, where the community comes together and says to the young people of the community, and especially in this neighborhood here, we care about you. Because you see, what these young people are seeing, not just a nice place to play basketball or in the computer room to run a software program. They don't see steel and cinder blocks alone. What they see are people.
Here we go. Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. That was the Boys and Girls Club, which is opening up next year, a brand new building on 145th Street between Amsterdam and Broadway. The Boys and Girls Club of Harlem. You'll stay tuned. We're having a fundraiser November 5th on a Thursday at, you see later on we'll give you talk more about it. All right, welcome to the show, Lloyd Dowdell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
But welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
Lloyd is doing a introductory computer program with National Action Network, and he's also also written a book on Barack Obama. That's going to be our topic today. What the accomplishments of Barack Obama. Welcome to the show, Lloyd.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Welcome. Tell us about the book to start with.
You know, the book was written in 2012. It's a compilation of many of the accomplishments of Barack Obama from 2008 up to this, his second term, or running for re-election for the second time. And it basically outlines all of his accomplishments, the things that he accomplished in office. Because quite honestly, there are a lot of folks that really don't know the outstanding accomplishments of this president. So I thought I would put that in writing in the form of a book that people can go to and refer so that they can see the great accomplishments of Barack Obama in office.
His biggest accomplishment being what?
I think the biggest accomplishment of the president was saving the economy.
Okay.
As you know, when he took office, the United States was losing about 800,000 jobs per month. The economy had tanked, Wall Street had collapsed, and many economies around the world that was dependent upon a strong U.S. economy was beginning to collapse as well. And so he came in and rescued it with the Recovery Act and bailed out Wall Street and saved a lot of homeowners from losing their homes. And so that was a great accomplishment. I think his second great accomplishment was health care. For over 50 years, many presidents have tried to bring universal health care to all, and he was actually the first president to ever accomplish that.
Well, you know what we're going to do, Lloyd? I'm going to give you a little flashback. We're going to play Lloyd back at National Action Network when the president came to our convention. And we'll talk a little bit about what's happening at National Action Network, and we'll introduce Owen Rogers and naturally Grand Weatherspoon's here. But we'll come back right back at you in a minute. All right? Come right back at you.
Okay, so how excited are you guys?
Very excited to be here. Very excited to be here.
You gotta get it. I gotta stand where you can look.
Okay.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have to kind of look at the camera.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so how excited are you guys to be here today?
Very excited to be here. This is an incredible opportunity for so many people that haven't had an opportunity to see the president. And really, we have to give tribute to the National Action Network. It's an incredible organization. And I think just by the mere fact that the president is showing up here today is a tribute to the success and the dynamic of this organization. The organization, under the leadership of the Reverend Al Sharpton, deals with all of the issues that affect not only the African American community, but all communities, whether it be social justice, economic justice, jobs, education, whatever the issues are. And I think with the president being here today is a recognition of the incredible strength of this organization, the vision and the leadership of this organization. And so we're just excited. I brought my son here. He's also the author of the kid that helped elect Barack Obama president. We don't normally pull him out of school, but because the president is coming in, I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity for him to see the president. And so this is just an incredible organization. It's an incredible opportunity, and we're delighted to be here to see the President of the United States.
How important is it for families to be involved in NAN?
I think it's incredibly important, and I would encourage anyone that to bring their entire family, not just one member of the family, but the entire family, so that they will have the benefit of the great information and knowledge that you get from attending the National Action Network conferences, the Saturday morning rallies at the House of Justice. We live in New Jersey, but we make it a habit to make sure that we have been so inspired, so educated, and so informed, and we are advocates for the community, and so it's been a great lesson, and we're just lucky to have that kind of blessing to be in the House of Justice under the leadership of the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Well, thank you so much. We're happy that you're able to support us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank
Welcome back. Your wife's on the roster, but we'll wait for that. Tell us about that day for you, and before we bring in
Well, it was,
Owen.
again, it was an incredible day, and it's really something that I believe that our community, in particular low-income communities, where the issues are not really brought to the attention in terms of congressional policies. So to see the president come in, it not only symbolizes some of the things that are articulated in the video, but also symbolizes an opportunity for us to come and hear what he's going to do about our issues. And so he addressed those issues, criminal justice reform, jobs, health care, and economic development, education. And so it was just, to me, it was another great opportunity to not only see the president, but to get a reassurance that he's focused on our issue. And again, you have to thank the National Action Network for making sure that, that we have this opportunity to see the president.
Well, you and Owen are on the tech committee here at National Action Network. Owen, give us some idea of how you two started this committee. Well, he's the president.
I'm a member. And Brother Dowdell is the chair and runs the committee. The critical thing is that technology is a powerful tool. Not everyone in our community has access to that tool or knows how to handle it.
Right.
And what Brother Dowdell and his team has done is brought simple language, information to everyone from the high school dropouts to the great-grandmother, so that they know what this gadget in front of them can do. And that's critical, that it is addressed in a familiar, comfortable setting in our community is critical, because some of these same students, from the teenagers to the grandparents, may not be comfortable sitting in academia. And that they have the opportunity to learn computers from somebody who knows it inside and out, and to be able to use the computers which have been donated to the National Action Network, to learn how to use the cyber world. That is something that's invaluable, because it's everything from knowing how to deal with your Medicare case, you know, for a grandma who doesn't quite understand, that information is there online, to the teenager who may have dropped out of high school, where do I go looking for a job? And bringing that complicated stuff to everyday folks is what Brother Dowdell and his team and his wife have done. And that's critical that the National Action Network is hosting that. There's no cost involved, and it's done in a comfortable, familiar setting in the middle of our community. You know, in Harlem, we're doing it 145th Street off Malcolm X Boulevard. We're doing that there in Harlem, and of course, NAN does it several other places within the country. Bringing that critical information, because to survive in today's world and to be computer illiterate, you are handicapped. Helping some of our people, from teenagers to great-grandparents, to overcome that handicap, that's the testimony of what Brother Dowdell and his wife and the committee has been doing.
You know, you mentioned employment. You know, people drop, you know, guys that have dropped out of school, people who dropped out and still need to find work. And a lot of people don't realize that gone are the days that you go someplace to look for a job.
That's right.
You go
That
online.
doesn't happen anymore.
You
You have to go online.
You have to go
You have
online.
to submit your application.
Right.
Your resume, if it's required, has to be downloaded and
Digital.
sent in. You don't go to an office looking for work unless you're going to the state unemployment office.
That is
But saying that
You know?
comes as a shock to both teenagers and grandparents
Right.
who are job hunting, that you have a paper resume, that's useless. It has to be digital and downloaded, and that in and of itself is a wake-up call to both the young people and some of our seniors. Even as I was mentioning, fighting for your Medicaid benefits, writing a paper letter, that can sit on someone's desk for the next 6 months. Digitally, they're obligated and they will respond to you within a week.
Filing for Social Security. You
So
do everything now. You're doing it online. Even if you don't know how to prepare a resume, you go online, they give you a format for a resume.
Break it.
And you can take that format and draft your resume. The computer is just the greatest asset in the last 30 years. I remember at work, you know, when they
Last
first
100
brought
years.
computers in.
Yes.
You know, a lot of guys didn't, I don't want to use a computer, I don't want to use a computer. They couldn't even type with a typewriter, let alone use the computer. But it is a basic and necessary tool today.
It's
In
a
the
very
absence-
critical. I'm sorry.
In the absence of that, we, again, our grandparents and our children end up paying somebody else to do it for us, whereas we should be doing it for ourselves. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
It's a critical issue. We have approximately 100 million citizens in the United States that are that's currently not connected to the internet. And therein lies
100 million?
100 million. This is a number that have been promoted by the Obama administration under the Federal Communications Commission.
Okay.
You may recall when Commissioner Clyburn was at a NAN conference, she mentioned that 100 million citizens are currently not connected. So having this huge digital divide, and out of that 100 million is primarily African Americans, Hispanics, and other
Poor folk.
minorities. And so having such a large population of American citizens that don't have access to broadband, internet, or computer is one of the reasons why the National Action Network developed the Technology Committee, which I so happen to have the great honor to chair. What we hope to be able to do in the city of New York, in particular starting off in Harlem, is to develop programs to be able to bridge this digital divide. So the committee, as an example, looking at ways how we can identify low-income schools in the community that would be willing to partner so that we can bring in the private sector, foundations, institutions of higher learning, and other academic organizations to be able to transfer this great technology as well as the learning to folks that currently are not connected to the internet. So it is a huge issue. And as you mentioned, and you, Roger, that government primarily have moved everything online.
Right.
So not only for the jobs, as you so eloquently stated, but for government services. All of it's just about online. So there's a revolution, federal, state, local government in terms of e-government. But if the people in the community, as an example in Bronx, you've got half of the community that is not connected. You have about 700,000 individuals in Bronx that don't have internet connection. In Harlem, it's pretty close to about 40% of the population in terms of low-income residents. In particular, those that are receiving public assistance, they are not connected because they can't afford it. And so we're developing programs in a very, how would you say, one step at a time way to be able to start off with something that will work in terms of a pilot and begin to ramp it up more and more to branch it out into the community.
Along with that, this past week, the mayor has called some people to task because the DOITT, they've gotten concessions from certain industry and certain leaders in the digital world that they will bring low access or free computer access to our communities. They have not kept these promises, these corporations.
Is that what we're doing at NAN now?
Well, that's what
We're doing, because if they had kept their promise, we wouldn't need a law to have classes, because they would be doing
this
that.
is promoting it, though. I saw the city came up at
Yes,
the opening.
That's right. The Department of Information Technology and Telecommunication, DO-IT, that Roger was referring to.
Right.
The commissioner of DO-IT was there in
She was
support,
there.
as well
Right.
as the mayor's chief advisor for bridging the digital divide throughout the 5 boroughs. Maya Wiley was there, and she's leading the initiative in terms of bridging the digital divide and making sure that
excited.
broadband access is deployed across
I
the 5
might
boroughs.
mention to the public that I'm in the class. So I'm taking the class from the beginning. Bev's right next to me, and we're just starting off and seeing what you can do for senior citizens.
Right, that's a
I
critical
mean,
part
a
of it.
lot I know already, but it's interesting to go back to basics. And a lot of stuff you knew something about, but it's interesting to hit the very elemental, processes this all goes through.
One
And
part
I'm
of-
just waiting for coding. I'm
The
excited
coding.
about that.
Yes.
Coding. So,
Part of that is that we very often have senior citizens in our community who are homebound. Being
Right.
homebound, if you have that digital literacy, does not mean that you're going to be cut off anymore. You can be homebound and be in communication with whomever you need to, whether it be the doctor who asks you, digitally, there are ways you can transmit your pulse and other medical information to your doctors, or whether it be the people who are supposed to be taking care of replacing the stove in your apartment. If you are homebound, ordinarily you're incommunicado. Through classes like the one that Brother Dowdell has done, and through the push that Do-It and Mayor de Blasio is doing, even those people who are homebound, which are many of our senior citizens, they now have direct communication, immediate communication, and access to the people who can help them solve their problem. So being at home doesn't mean being cut off anymore in a digital world. And that in and of itself is an eye-opener to some of our senior citizens.
Absolutely, and we have to give credit to the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton for making this a critical issue for the National Action Network.
that leads me into, I want to hear from your wife.
Sure.
I want to finish this piece
Okay.
there,
All
because I
right.
think everybody should hear what she has to say
Okay.
about National Action Network.
Okay.
She's the main, she's the lady of the house.
Absolutely.
Let's play this other piece, and we'll come right back at you.
So, how excited are you?
I'm extremely excited, especially because as we have our son here, we've been a part of the National Action Network for about 3 years now. And one day he just says, I have to go out and campaign for President Obama. So for us to be out there in the streets with the issues and everything, and then for to be able to bring the president to the people. And these are the everyday people that support and get out there and work hard. So to have that happen and to bring it right to us is just amazing, and it's really wonderful.
What do you have to say to Al Sharpton about the fact that he's able to do that? That's amazing in itself, just the work behind that.
Well, he's a unique individual because to be able to, all these years, to be able to hang in there with everything he's been through. And one of the reasons we were talking about today, why he is so successful, because he stays with the people. He walks with us, he talks with us, he is a part of us, and he does what's best for us. So, I mean, that is what's so really amazing about him, is that he sticks with us. He says he's going to work for you. It's not like he doesn't know what's going on, because he's right in the trenches. So he may be on TV, he may be here, he may be there, but he's also here. He's everywhere to make sure that justice gets done.
He connects with the people.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Everyone. And so it's a pleasure. We have it always, the DVR running when he's on at 6 o'clock. If we're going to miss it, we don't want to miss it. So again, it's like a unique individual today in this country to be able to stand up for rights the way he does and get things done. And so that's why we had to have the family get together and be able to come do rallies. Who does that anymore? Who's out there fighting like that? Not a lot. So we're blessed to be close enough to come from New Jersey to come to New York and be able to be involved.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now, as you know, I do the videographer for Reverend Sharpton. I've been doing it for, 18 years. And he comes on every Saturday at 7:30 at national mnn.org on your Wi-Fi, and it's 7:30 every Saturday at 7:30.
In
Channel
Manhattan.
34.
And what's the Bronx?
Manhattan, Bronx doesn't come in on the Bronx. But you can always get it on www.mnn.org, any place in the world. All right? And he was talking about how people in South Africa had seen the program. So my video is seen by the world.
Worldwide.
Fascinating. He was in, remember he talks about being in South Africa, and
right.
the people ran up to him and said, I watch your show every week.
Right. That's right.
That kind of access is invaluable because the same way that if you're talking about 1866, there are people who understood that literacy was a necessary step for us to move forward after having broken the chains of slavery, the same way digitally that it becomes important for our people to have access. Because those people who cannot sit at a city hall meeting and address their city council member, they can sit at home and push a button, and
right.
2 seconds later that city council member has their letter, their complaint, their suggestion, their ideas. And that kind of information is what is invaluable as we move forward. And it's not just, we think of the students, they're in school, they're in class, they may be getting some of what they need. But those who are out of the class, those who are dropouts or those who are senior citizens, they also need access to that kind of digital.
Well, Graham
work.
has a story when you went to Africa. Didn't somebody walk up to you and say, I saw you watch your program?
I was in the Gambia walking through the lobby of my hotel, and the gentleman said, you're speaking to people, good morning, good morning. And the guy says, good morning, Brother Weatherspoon. I turned. I'm 5,000 miles from home. He says, no, I know who you are. I'm from the Bronx. I watch this show every week. So I'm in West Africa, intersecting with another New Yorker who was also in the Gambia at the same time. And it was ironic because the president, I wound up there because the president of the Gambia had seen an interview that I had on the internet years ago and was tracking me down. And it was a talk I gave to some kids in Bed-Stuy. So he saw that talk and had the embassy in Washington track me down here in New York, and I get a phone call, and next thing I know, I'm in Africa with the president of the Gambia. But your son, how old is he, and what prompted him, what put the fire under him to want to campaign for the president of, or a would-be president of the United
That's
States?
an excellent question. Kids understand injustice, though they may not speak as we speak about it as adults. They may sit around the kitchen table at dinner time and hear the parents talk about it, but they also identify injustice. And even though at the time he was only 11 years old, he had experienced.
Oh, he was 11?
He was 11 when he wrote the book.
Wow.
So prior to that, because we watch a lot of news shows and we try to be engaged in the political dynamics of our community, we try to exchange our views with elected officials, and we've been doing that since he was born. And so he was brought up under that kind of energy, so to speak, in terms of wanting to be politically informed and wanting to have take action. So he observed the Bush administration, and he observed, and he heard us talk about it.
Right.
And then when he heard Obama was running to be president, and when he heard Obama speak about what he was going to do, because a lot of kids have lost confidence in the political system and elected officials. Yeah. They don't know how to articulate that, and a lot of them don't. Right. But he articulated, and he says, Dad, I've got to go out with you to campaign for Barack Obama. I said, well, Chris, you're only 11 years old. I said, I'm thinking about what some of the adults would say if I brought you in a campaign trailer at 11 years old, because I haven't seen 11. I said, I see teenagers. I said, so let me go talk to them. He says, Dad, you don't understand. You can't walk out that door without me. And if I go with you, Obama will win. at 11 years old.
Hey.
I looked at his mom and I said, and she looked at me, and we both said, okay, Christian, you gotta go.
From the mouths of
jumped,
babes.
at 11 years, he jumped for joy. He ran in his room and he put on his coat and he was like, I'm ready to go, Dad, I'm ready to go. And when we got there, he was fired up. And when we was out there campaigning, I could not keep up with my son. We had a suburban community that we had to promote Obama. And some of them had 100 yards, 50 yards before you can actually get to the door. We're
door.
very wealthy
Yes, I
neighborhood.
understand that.
Walkways. Yeah.
He would say, Dad, stop. And I would stop, and he'd open the door before I could say anything, and he's running up there, and I'm going like, oh my God, my son is running up on his property. And so as we worked our way back down into the more densely populated communities, upstairs, downstairs, in the apartment buildings, I couldn't keep up with him, and he was knocking on the door. Hi, my name is Kristen Dowdell. I'd like to ask for your support in voting for Barack Obama to be president of the United States. He's going to do this, and he's going to do this. He's going to end the wars. He's going to protect Israel. He's going to protect our soldiers. He's going to protect police officers. And he was on fire. Honestly, I didn't realize he was my son at that point because he had an energy that I had never seen before. And so, and he carried that energy all the way through the end of the campaign. And then afterwards, we were sitting in the park and I was commending him for such a great job that he had done. And he said to me, he says, Daddy, I got to inspire kids. He said, because we can make a difference.
Amen.
And he said, I want to write about that. And that's how the book was,
Amen.
the idea of the book came to.
Now, is he self-published?
Yes, self-published.
All right, now that takes us back to the technology.
That's right.
You see, because
Yeah.
years ago, to write a book, first of all, you had to have somebody to back you and
course.
hopefully get an advance on it.
That's right.
Find a publishing company or
Yeah,
somebody
the
that was
artwork
interested in
and the
Printing press and
yes,
a building and all
cover
that.
design and all of that.
Yes.
And at age 11 or 12 now, your son is writing a book.
That's right. So the cost is on the parents.
So, how did that hit you? No, wait, let me back up, because, this is really something, because we,
Yes.
as adults,
The old
in
heads.
our lives, never thought we'd ever see a black president.
That is true.
Yeah, amen.
So that was not, I'm sure that was not the point of reference
that's
for
right.
your son.
It played a major role as well. And
Of course.
it played a major role. But I think coupled with that, and equally as important, was that he listened and he believed what he was saying. And that was rare because I never heard him as much as we would go to, for instance, we went to the Democratic National, and he would listen to people, but he says, Daddy, I believe this man.
Yeah.
He said, plus he's African American, he'll be the first black president, but he's gonna do what he said he's gonna do. He said he's gonna end the war, he's gonna end the war. And those things
With
have
all
come to
that
pass.
hope and all that energy of all of us being so involved and watching what's happened in the last 7 years, he's failed a lot of people, but we're here today to talk about his accomplishments.
Right.
And I've always said, I say it almost every show in the beginning, that he's a blessing from God. And I still believe that, because I'm old enough to, I was 14 when Emmett Till was killed. I was the same age as Emmett Till. So my flashbacks to 11, 12, I was, that was inconceivable. This was inconceivable in 2000. The furthest thing in your mind to think that in 8 years we have a black president.
Well,
So it's a miracle. So you know what I want to do? We're going to hear from our president.
all right.
Here's a weekly address, October 17th, or is it the 18th? Play the president, our president, Barack Obama.
Hi, everybody. 30 years ago, there were 500,000 people behind bars in America. Today, there are 2.2 million. The United States is home to 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's prisoners. Every year, we spend $80 billion to keep people locked up. Now, many of the folks in prison absolutely belong there. Our streets are safer thanks to the brave police officers and dedicated prosecutors who put violent criminals behind bars. But over the last few decades, we've also locked up more nonviolent offenders than ever before, for longer than ever before. That's one of the real reasons our prison population is so high. Ever since I was a senator, I've talked about how in too many cases our criminal justice system is a pipeline from underfunded schools to overcrowded jails. And we've taken steps to address it. We've invested in our schools to give at-risk young people a better shot to succeed. I've signed a bill reducing the 100-to-1 sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine. I've commuted the sentences of dozens of people sentenced under old drug laws we now recognize were unfair. The Department of Justice has gotten smart on crime, refocusing efforts on the worst offenders and pursuing mandatory minimum sentences less frequently. Still, much of our criminal justice system remains unfair. In recent years, more of our eyes have been opened to this truth, and we can't close them anymore. Good people of all political persuasions are eager to do something about it. Over the next few weeks, I'll travel the country to highlight some of the Americans who are doing their part to fix our criminal justice system. I'll visit a community battling prescription drug and heroin abuse. I'll speak with leaders from law enforcement who are determined to lower the crime rate and the incarceration rate, and with police chiefs who have dedicated their careers to keeping our streets and officers safe. I'll meet with former prisoners who are earning their second chance. And I'll keep working with lawmakers from both parties who are determined to get criminal justice reform bills to my desk. Earlier this month, Democrats and Republicans came together in the Senate to introduce such a bill, one that would reduce mandatory minimums for nonviolent drug offenders and reward prisoners with shorter sentences if they complete programs that make them less likely to commit a repeat offense. There's a similar bill working its way through the House, and I'm encouraged by these kinds of bipartisan efforts. It's real progress. Not liberal ideas or conservative ideas, but common sense solutions to the challenges we face. From the halls of Congress to the classrooms in our schools, we pledge allegiance to one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. Justice means that every child deserves a chance to grow up safe and secure without the threat of violence. Justice means that the punishment should fit the crime. And justice means allowing our fellow Americans who've made mistakes to pay their debt to society and rejoin their community as active, rehabilitated citizens. Justice has never been easy to achieve, but it's always been worth fighting for. And it's something I'll keep fighting for as long as I have the privilege to serve as your president. Thanks, and have a great weekend.
You know, it's so warming for me. I have a son older than him, and I'm like, it just, you know, I'm so, I mean, I just love this man. I mean, to me, he's a blessing from God. I mean, if I had a son, I mean, that would be my boy. I mean, my man, you know? And I got so involved with this that I went to his homeland to see what, you know, you're a product of your environment. Why is he so laid back? All right? So I had been in Hawaii. I was in Hawaii in '61, the year he was born. I was in the Marine Corps. And we were off watching H-bombs go off. Wow. I was on a station on a ship. I was a Marine, but I was stationed on a ship for 2 years. But having been in Hawaii, and actually recently me and my wife went for her birthday 2 years ago, and I went in April last year. And it's such an amazing place, and I was happy to meet, Graham has a cousin there. So the first time we were there, his cousin showed us around. So, I mean, I really got to see Hawaii. Right. You know, not like a tourist. The second time I went, his cousin wasn't around. I got to see it as a tourist, but it wasn't the same. I got to see where Obama would stay when he was there. I got to see the beach where he learned how to surf. I took all these amazing photographs, and my wife and I have a photograph on Facebook that we took at the beach. There was a Air Force base. I mean, the place is so beautiful.
You went to the school, too, the high school? Was it the high school you went to?
The high school. We went to this high school. It was like a college campus. And of course, I came back and showed it all on video. But the man is from a part of the world where nature and God as presence. That's why I say all the time, he's a present from God.
Yes, he is.
All right?
Yes, he
so
is.
I see the beauty in the man. You see how so many people are so disappointed what he hasn't been able to accomplish.
Well,
So I want to dedicate this show, and I'm glad you're here, so we can give him his props before he goes, and it's the last quarter of his presidency. And
Absolutely. So if you look at it, the collapse of the economy, had he not stepped in to save the economy and collapse, whatever plight or situation that the minority community is now, if America had to be rebuilt, believe me, we would not be where we are right now. If we would have had to have rebuilt from the bottom up, and I don't think that African Americans or other minorities would be at the top of the food chain in terms of priorities.
No, not at all.
So, so it's a blessing because he saved us.
Okay.
Yes, he saved Wall Street, but could you imagine us having to start all over again, just completely wiped out? No way, being a minority in this country, and this being a democratically principled political system where the majority rule, there's no way that our priorities would have taken a priority over the majority. And so wherever we are today, we would not be there for Obama. But let me just jump to a couple other points in terms of technology, because we talked about the 100 million folks that don't have technology, primarily African Americans, Hispanics, and other minorities. Obama recognized that. During the Recovery Act, he put $13 billion to connect our communities, $13 billion. Since then, he has put $900 million for a program that's called Connected America. He has put almost $200 million to connect low-income families that live in public housing. All told, he's approaching about $15 billion in expenditure directly for our community. In addition to that...
So this is what you say to the black community. You say, what has he done for us?
Yes, in addition to that, in addition to those points, just think where we would be if the average person now without Obamacare. So I know people that are paying $17, $34 a month, and they have medical coverage for $17 to $34 a month. Other words, if your income, if you didn't have an income,
Medicaid, Medicare.
yeah, if you didn't have an income before, and if you weren't on Medicaid or Medicare, you didn't have any insurance.
Okay.
What Obama did, as he recognized that a lot of people think, I mean, if you think about who is the health care for, it's for the people who don't have it. And who are the ones that don't have it? A majority, almost all African Americans, except for the ones that are working to get it through their jobs or whatever the case may be, or on welfare. But for the ones who are unemployed, which is a high number, so for the first time, we were able to get health care. And if we didn't make any money, or if you made $10,000, $12,000, $14,000, $20,000, $25,000 a year, $30,000 a year, you were paying $34, $18 to $34 a month for health care, which meant that you could go into the same office and be treated by the same doctor as a wealthy individual. And that's what some of the stink was about, because for you to be able to have a high quality doctor because you're very wealthy, or you're very wealthy, or you're very wealthy, and I, poor, I can come sit next to you in the same doctor's office. That's never been available before. So,
what do you say when you hear all these lies that are told about Obamacare?
I just think that I think that what our community was looking for is for him to articulate in a very clear voice that this is what I'm going to do for black people.
Well, he couldn't do that.
Right, he couldn't do that.
We understand that.
Right, we understand that. But the masses
why didn't black people understand that?
Well, not everyone is politically astute. And
But
there
I
are
mean,
things...
it'd be dumb for you see all these crackers.
But the point is that if we were to say we want to get the 300,000 brothers who are on the street corner, get them working jobs, and to make sure that they have a way that they can earn and feed their families, if we were to speak in, common parlance, people would say, wait a minute now, what about those folks who don't look like you who might be unemployed? So instead of saying, well, to find jobs for these 300,000 brothers, we then have to say those who are unemployed will do outreach to. It's the semantics. Because if we say those who are unemployed will do outreach to, then people understand it's inclusive of everyone. Whereas if we say just the brothers on the corner, they begin to think, well, this is a racist program that Obama's doing only for black folk. And the semantics that's tied in with the politics is a critical thing. And we have to be alert to that because when we're talking about improving the economy, we're talking about a deficit, a budget deficit that was 9.8% that now is down to about 3%. We're not talking about just helping the brothers. We're talking about saving corporations. We're talking about the meltdown that Wall Street was going through, and we're talking about people who are making high incomes who now have some guarantee that their incomes, their corporations, their jobs will continue, who don't look like us.
Well, the Dow Jones went from 6,500 to what is it now, 18?
And it benefits a whole lot of people who don't look like us.
Right.
And this is part of what we have to talk about. 65 current consistent
that's
months of
12,000
economic.
points.
That's right.
Economic growth going on for the last 65 months.
It's 12,000 points.
But we have to make sure that people understand Obama is not just taking care of the homies.
No.
He's taking care of the country.
The country.
And this is the credit that's being denied him. A lot of people are not giving him the credit for saving the country. And when gas prices go down, it's not just us who benefit.
Why do black people say he's not black enough?
Well,
Because he's not speaking. He's not speaking.
I think that's a psychology as opposed to a political question, but that's another story.
Or even worse, they don't like him because his mother was white?
Well, half of the black people in this country have white blood.
Well, we
in
all
them,
know
so,
that.
I mean,
But how could
what's the
they
point?
hold that against them? I mean, some of our intellects have come out here and said that.
Right. Well, you know what? I think that our local elected officials and those folks who are politically astute and have a constituent base where they can talk to them, like town hall meetings and things like, and be more active in conveying what Obama is really doing. As an example, billions and billions of dollars have been transferred to the community.
When have you heard that?
Here's my point.
Media has this bias.
Right. Here's my point. If you look at many of the federal agencies, you'll see billions of dollars in grant programs for the community. But he can't go on television and say, hey, I got money over there for you, go apply for it. But the money is there. And so
Why can't we do
So
that
how does
here?
one, and this goes back to the technology, how does one find out and know that there is grant money there for you for starting a business, for having work done on your house? There are thousands of federal grant programs out there, and you'll never know about them.
That's right.
If you don't have a computer.
If you don't have a computer.
Or information is not provided to you in some way.
Right. You are absolutely right.
But the Republicans will turn that around and say Obama's giving our money away.
No, because there are federal standards that you have to meet in order to qualify for the money. So anyone who meet those standards, it's race neutral. It's more data and application procedures and process meeting the guidelines of the federal government. As an example, Obama has put billions of dollars out for communities all across America for groups to get together and work out an economic development revitalization plan for their community.
So that's what we should be doing in a community like Harlem.
Yes.
Right. And so what happens?
We don't know about some of these.
Right. So what happens is that like for instance, if you look in the city of New York, and you look at the economic development agencies or those profits and for-profit organizations, they are all applying for those grants. And when you look at their board, not anyone that look like us is on that board. And so when you see economic development projects in our community, there are many that, there are some, and I should say that there are many, but the substantial amounts that they pull down from the federal government. First of all, they can do the research, they can write the grant, they have the expertise, they have the grant writers, and they have people that do this every day. They've been doing it for 25 years. So they're able to pull down the money. But my point it's not so much the mechanics of it, but the fact of the matter is that Obama did send billions of dollars for low-income communities. For
People
them
don't
to,
even know about it.
and they don't know about it. Our
Elected officials are
They-
doing what?
Right. Well, and you know what? I like to criticize the elected officials, but I also would not like to criticize them because, in all honesty, when you look at the political dynamics, like even in the state of New York, you have a Republican-controlled legislature. Senate, I believe, and a democratically controlled assembly. And so the issues are driven by the folks who are the most prolific in terms of advocacy, the squeaky oil. And we do not write, we do not advocate for ourselves. And so the issues are driven pretty much as they are in Washington, D.C. by the lobbyists. And so we get left out because we really don't have it. But the money was there, just like the $12 billion. And there's another $19 billion Obama has put in on the Universal Service Program to connect families that don't have. So there was $15 billion. Now there's about $19 billion, between 16 and 19 billion that's currently available right now through the Universal Service Program. And the people that take advantage of those programs are the large corporations, like the Verizons and the Comcast. Roger mentioned the Comcast program where there's free computer training and access to a computer for like $9.95 a month. That's being subsidized by the federal government. So the federal government sends a check to the large corporations like Verizon and Time Warner, and they give the poor person the $9 to pay, but the government pays the balance of the $40.
You see, but the thing is that the poor person is paying, and they're getting money from the government, so it's a win-win for them.
Oh, it is.
And they're not giving anything out to the poor.
That's exactly right.
But what can the poor, what is available? I know you have a long list of things that he's done.
I'll be brief. But let me, no, I think I have your question, but would you finish it, please?
But, you know, the corporations, and a lot of them aren't even paying taxes. The major corporations don't pay taxes at all.
They pull down this money.
So in terms of the grants, those funds that are allocated, I mean, if your congressperson is in Washington,
buried with
and these bills are being written,
right,
and it's coming through committee,
right,
and it's being signed off, a congressperson should be aware of what it is and notify their constituents
or
back
at least
at home.
someone like Mr. Gilchrist who could do a show about it to inform the
and
community.
inform
That's
the
why we're
people.
gonna do that. That's
You
why
know,
we're doing
no,
it.
That's right.
no, you're not going to get the money for Comcast, but what is available for the working Joe and Mary?
I'll give you a good example. Governor Cuomo and the Democratic leadership, as well as other Democrats throughout, there's $2 billion currently appropriated right now. $2 billion.
In New York State.
Right here in New York State. For every school throughout New York State, and we know that the large schools are in the minority areas because that's the high concentration in terms of
Question, which is self-serving to me. What about the Boys and Girls Club of Harlem?
Okay, so
You need grant writers.
That's a different scenario.
right. So, but I can tell you how this money tie into that. So the $2 billion that's currently available, it was passed November 4th, 2014. It was a bond act called New York Smart Schools.
Okay.
That's $2 billion appropriated, passed and voted upon and signed into law by the governor. Wall Street raised the money. The money is on the table. Each school district have their allocation.
Wow.
But there is no discussion. There's no discussion about the minority community for the first time. And I've been a consultant with the Digital Divide, been an ambassador voluntarily for the Department of Commerce to go to mayors all across the country and talk to them about the digital divide. I had a tenure, 5 years, in the State Department of Education in New Jersey, where my job was to make sure 616 school districts had technology not only for the teacher but also for the students. This is the first time in 25 years of being in this business that I've ever seen that kind of money appropriated to solve the digital divide in low-income communities. $2 billion. $783 million went to the city of New York, Manhattan.
So the money's here.
The money's here.
See, this is one thing I'll point out to you, and this may be
Again, how would the Boys and Girls
Right.
Club play into
Now,
that?
the regulations say that in order for each school district is allocated based on need. So, in other words, free lunch programs. So, if there's a school where the majority of the students have free lunch, that school will get a big impact in terms of those dollars.
Right.
They can outfit their classroom with one-to-one computers for every child, high-speed broadband internet, and there's a community component mandated by law that each school district cannot apply for the New York Smart School funds unless they meet with the community, and the community is part of the planning process. Now, why did they do that? The reason why they did that was because so often the community is not a part of it, and the problem is never solved. So the smartness of whoever in the legislature, or maybe it was the governor's office, the community have to be part of the local school district. In Harlem, it's School District 5. Or that school district.
Nine's not involved?
I'm sorry?
There are three school
He's
districts.
just identifying 5, right?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying School District 5, there's District 4, 3, 2. They cannot pull down that money unless they can certify to the state that they've met with the community and the community has bought into the plan. Now, here's the part that can be very good for the Boys and Girls Club. Because part of the school district funding, they also have to have a community link for broadband connection into the community. So as an example, and I can't guarantee you this, but the language is there that will allow them to identify a community partner where they can build a broadband facility and have computers there that's underwritten as part of their budget. But there's no conversation. This passed in 2014. So there's no conversation. And so hopefully what I'm trying to do through the committee, and Roger is a member of the committee, and I'm glad to have Roger, for reasons as everyone can see, he's well informed about and he's an intellect. We need to have these kind of meetings in our community so that we can make sure that community-based organizations are wired up, because the idea is that when the kid leaves the school, when they go home, most of them don't have a computer in their home. How do they continue their learning? So the legislature fixed that problem. And they said in the school districts, you have to plan for a community outreach in terms of a facility where they can have access to broadband and computers. And that's something that, you know, that I could work with you on. And that's
We got a fundraiser coming up on November 5th, and Lloyd's definitely got a ticket.
This is the Boys and Girls?
Yes.
For the new headquarters.
Yes.
On 145th Street, the new headquarters.
A new building, we're putting up apartments and a new Boys and Girls Club of Harlem.
And I don't want to belabor this point, but this is such an incredible opportunity for the community.
Great.
But the parents don't know about it.
We're going to publicize it.
And some of the school district superintendent's office.
Well, we had a discussion about District 5 a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
We had
and I'm not being
here.
critical. I'm just saying they're not discussing it.
It's
you know.
just there are problems in that district, but overall, the mayor oversees education. All right, mayoral control in New York, in my opinion, is ridiculous.
Right, but here's the thing with this law, and I've read it because I've read it since it was before it was passed. And so I can, in fact, I've got about 24 pages I can send anybody that will explain to you what the benefit of this to the community. But the mayor is really not in control of this particular funding pool. They've taken it out of, the money may come into the city, but it's the school district that have to plan. It's the school district that have to satisfy New York State Department of Education, the management office that oversees the $2 billion program. So unlike before where the mayor would have to appropriate X number of dollars and they would have oversight, this money is coming from a bond raised by funding from Wall Street that go into a pool and is based on need for each school district, and the money is allocated to each school district based on their application. So if so the mayor is not directly involved in terms of that. The oversight is coming right from the state, but the mayor will obviously, because it is education, have some influence there. But
How does that affect charter schools?
I'm sorry?
How does that affect the charter schools as opposed to the regular public schools?
Yeah, based on the law, as I read it, there are some benefits for charter schools, but not very much. It's really more dynamically for the public schools.
Well, they have
As
enough
it
help
should be.
as it is.
Yeah, charter
don't
schools
they?
are not
They're doing
underfunded.
fine, aren't they?
Right.
Money is not their problem with the charter schools
Okay.
or the corporations that create them.
You know,
Money's not
Lloyd,
their problem.
Lloyd, I keep
Lloyd.
calling you. You know, you have to come back because I want you to talk more about your book. But we only have a few minutes left.
Okay.
In the last few minutes, I'd like you to give us a brief boost for what Obama should be doing in this last year.
Interesting.
What do you like to see happen?
Well, in addition to the book here,
Which that is my copy, right?
you certainly
It
can.
is now.
In my opinion, Obama's hands are pretty much tied because he's the administrator.
What about when he gets away from the presidency?
Okay, but let's talk about what he can do now, as you said. I think what he can do now, since his second term is over, you don't have to play to the politics of the Republicans. I think that he can be a little more dynamic in terms of programs that will impact low-income communities. As an example,
We see what he's doing with the prisons.
right? As an example, I would
First
like
president.
I would like to see Obama. Approximately $35,000 is spent every year, and this is based on the Congressional Budget Office report that you can pull online. You can see it today.
Okay.
So when you look at rent subsidies and food stamps and all of the other subsidies that they give a person or in terms of support, it's about $35,000. And that's for utilities and just all kinds of subsidies and programs. About 35. I'd like to see Obama, and I propose this to folks, but I'd like to see them take that $35,000 and fragment it, but put it all together and target it for that low-income person in the form of a jobs voucher for those that are capable of working.
Wow, okay.
So that that individual now has a paycheck every week as opposed to $300 in food stamps and then rent subsidies, which they will never climb out of poverty.
Right.
So, and they're spending the $35,000.
30
so,
seconds.
Oh, if they
So-
took that $35,000 and bundled it together and made it available for that person, and in terms of a jobs voucher.
President
it would-
Obama, you've heard it from us. So we expect you to tune in next week for. We'll come back with more ideas on how to take care of us. As
And
a
thank you for
people.
the job that you're doing.
The
and
God
that
in me
you've
loves
done.
and God in you. And thank God for President Obama.
President Obama.
Power to the
Right.
people.
Power to the people.
A lot of
I have a special copy. This is Mark.
Yeah.
So I'm going to send it
That's the one with the blank pages, the one he's giving you.
Hi.